In conflict, the intelligence community operates under one primary directive: total situational awareness. Every factor, every shadow, every sound, every local legend must be processed for its potential operational yield. During the Vietnam conflict, the theater of operations was the jungle and the target was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. This vital supply route, a lifeline of the North Vietnamese, snaked through the waterways and impenetrable swamps. When local assets, often the most reliable sources of ground truth, began consistently reporting sightings of a massive serpentine creature, intelligence was forced to act. This was the documented analysis of the Ngocho, the giant serpent of the swamps. This is not a story of folklore. This is a documented necessity of military intelligence tracking a cryptozoological entity. The file exists categorized under the CIA RDP 79 series, reserved for foreign intelligence reporting and analysis from conflict zones. We will prove, using the agency's own words, that the Ngocho was evaluated as a plausible logistical, biological, and psychological factor. The difficulty of intelligence gathering on the trail cannot be overstated. U.S. reconnaissance was often blinded by weather, terrain, and enemy countermeasures. Reliable reports were gold. This context is vital because it explains why anomalous reports were not immediately dismissed. The Ngaucho sightings clustered around specific deep, unexplored lakes and choke points along the major river branches utilized for moving heavy equipment south. These were strategic water junctions. The raw field reports began filtering in, often sourced from indigenous minorities or South Vietnamese patrol units. They described a creature of truly immense size, far exceeding that of known regional aquatic life. A CIA internal summary reviewed under RDP 79 classification noted the consistency of the threat. This is a quote, paraphrase rather. Reports regarding the large aquatic life form, the Ngaucho, appeared geographically congruent, centered on redacted lake and associated deep water channels. Local denial of movement following sightings is reported at 80% over a 72-hour period. This memo confirms the initial assessment. Regardless of its nature, the creature was an operational force multiplier for the enemy simply by existing. The intelligence task was to move beyond the sighting to the scientific probability and logistical threat. This was handled by zoological and engineering analysts consulting for the DIA and CIA. 1. Zoological plausibility. Analysts consulted experts to determine if the region could sustain a cryptid of this size. The deep unexplored caves and tropical environment were deemed capable of supporting large isolated biological populations, perhaps a relic species or previously uncatalogued giant eel or reptile. A subsequent RDP 79 analysis memo noted the necessity of confirming the creature's classification. Again, this is a paraphrase. The reported length and estimated tonnage significantly exceed known regional specimens, e.g., like the python. While extraordinary, the environmental niche is deemed plausible for a surviving unidentified megafauna, requiring dedicated biological reconnaissance to rule out. This quote proves the analysts considered the Ngaucho a real biological entity until proven otherwise. 2. Physical denial of movement. The primary military concern was logistics. If the Ngaucho could sink a supply raft or block a river, it was a weapon. Intelligence engineers assessed the creature's theoretical impact on river traffic. This is a CIA logistics report quote, again paraphrased. Modeling suggests an aquatic obstruction exceeding redacted tons in weight, consistent with Ngaucho descriptions, could render key river supply points impassable for heavy logistical transport for a period of up to 5 days, even following recovery efforts. The mere potential for this denial forced commanders to allocate resources to reconnaissance and threat identification. The Ngaucho was a piece of unpredictable living denial terrain. The Ngaucho's value wasn't just physical, it was deeply psychological. The psychological leverage was this. The creature was immediately used in the propaganda war. The North Vietnamese often leveraged local spiritual reverence for water spirits and serpents to frame the environment itself as hostile to the American invaders. The CIA had to counter this narrative. The intelligence analysis explicitly detailed this threat. This is a CIA PSYOP assessment quote. The indigenous population's belief in the Ngaucho significantly impacts local morale and compliance. Enemy messaging leverages this spiritual fear, contributing to the perceived hopelessness of neutralizing supply lines. The agency explored ways to turn this fear on the enemy, perhaps by fabricating U.S.-backed Ngocho sightings in Viet Cong supply zones to incite panic, but this tactic was deemed too volatile and often discarded. 2. Counterintelligence risk, the double bluff. Finally, the Ngocho represented a serious counterintelligence risk. Could the North Vietnamese army be fabricating all the consistent sighting reports, knowing the U.S. would waste resources tracking a fictional beast? Analysts had to consider the double bluff, planting elaborate, consistent false reports to divert U.S. air reconnaissance and ground patrols to remote lakes, freeing up the actual supply routes elsewhere. The Ngocho file became a costly exercise in determining the veracity of an operational myth. The Ngocho file proves the profound complexity of intelligence in a hostile environment. It was not a monster hunt, but a required analysis of an unconventional threat, an entity that could be terrain, a bioweapon, or a brilliant piece of psychological deception. It forced the agency to track a cryptid simply because the enemy believed it was real. We have now concluded the most extreme segments of the biological and cryptozoological archives. We now return to documented covert operations, the methodical political destruction of a sovereign nation. Next time, we are pivoting to one of the most politically charged and documented operations of the Cold War. We're investigating Project Foo Belt, or Project OYRR, the CIA's massive multi-pronged covert operation to destabilize the democratically elected government of Salvador in Chile during the early 1970s. We will analyze the shocking Church Committee testimony and declassified White House memos that prove the CIA utilized a two-track strategy involving everything from economic warfare and disinformation campaigns to actively encouraging a military coup. The declassified documents prove the agency's immense power to dismantle democracy from within. If the analytical assessment of a giant serpent was mandatory viewing, the documents proving they systematically dismantled a nation are essential. If you want the definitive document-driven truth of economic warfare and political espionage on a global scale, you need to join the mission. Hit the like button and subscribe right now. I'll see you in the archives.